Good evening. Today is Tuesday, January 16th, and it is 6:02 p.m. This is the regular meeting of the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission. And we will get started here with a roll call, and I'll hand that over to our city clerk.
Commissioner Emerson,
Present.
Commissioner Momsen,
Here.
Commissioner Smull is not here. Chairman Hagstrom,
Here?
Commissioner Van Wagner,
Present.
and tonight we'll also be having Commissioner Knudsen
Here.
and Youth Commissioner Alioto.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. So before we start with the regular calendar, we'll look to the public. Have any comments from the public? No? Any Zoom? No? Okay. So I guess we'll jump right into the regular calendar. We have item 2.1, consideration of a utility box wrap project. I think City Clerk will discuss that.
Yes, so good evening, Commissioners. This item before you this evening was originally heard in November of 2020. It was brought forward at that time to look at if a utility box wrap project would be feasible here in the city of Sonoma. Previous Commissioner Veronica Napolis and Commissioner Schlelein both had approached the city with a proposal to conduct this project. And when they were looking at it, it would include basically a call to artists to design artwork to wrap the utility boxes and traffic signals within the community. It's in the packet. We also included projects that have been done in the town of San Anselmo, the city of Napa, and the city of Rancho Cordova. In the research, typically the chosen artist or artists receive an honorary or a stipend for their work. And it varies depending on the place, the town. In San Anselmo, or town of San Anselmo, they received an honorarium of $500. Rancho Cordova, it was $750, and in the city of Sonoma, the suggestion at the time that we should consider $350 as a suggested honorarium. One of the things that we did run into when staff was researching this project was that the city of Sonoma does not own utility boxes. We have very few that belong to the city. Most of them, unless they're tucked away into neighborhoods, are down Broadway and Napa, which are either Caltrans or PG&E. In looking at this, I had discussed this with Mike Berger, our Public Works Director, and he made some suggestions on boxes that might benefit from being wrapped. Some of them, though, what we found was it looked like the boxes that were the right size to be wrapped were not the city's, and the few that were the city owned would not really benefit from being wrapped because they were too small. At that time, the conversation turned to what would it look like to contact Caltrans or and PG&E to see if they would be interested in working with the city to do a wrap project. When we looked at this as well, the idea was that if the commission did decide they wanted to pursue this, then we could appoint an ad hoc committee to work with staff to prepare a report that would have to be presented to the council for the expenditure of those funds. If you go through just briefly, if you were able to view in the packet at the very end were the sites that had been identified that had utility boxes that were suggested by our Public Works Director as possible ones that the city or that the commission might want to look at. Again, as I said, unfortunately, majority of those are not owned by the city. So that would be something that If the commission were interested in moving forward, then we'd need to have contact with Caltrans and PG&E.
Yes, Deb?
On the other cities that have done this, were they owned by the city, or were they have the same issues that we did?
I believe, and maybe Commissioner Knudsen can tell us in Napa, I believe in Napa, looking at them, most of them were city-owned.
Yeah, they're city-owned in Napa. I am working on a project with Caltrans Public Art right now, so I don't know, they may most likely be able to assist us with this, but there's a lot of guidelines with Caltrans. But ours were all city-owned in Napa.
That's what I thought. And I believe that the other cities or the town and city that we had looked at were in the same situation. I know that then Commissioner Napoles had worked in previous organizations where she had been involved in the public art, had worked with someone at Caltrans, or had went through that process prior. So I know it can be done. It's just a matter of whether that's something the commission would like to pursue. One thing of note too is that the city council is going to be having their goal setting on February 2nd. And I know that at that time they're going to be setting the goals for the year. And that will also include goals for the commissions. And as they go through the budget process over the next few months, as we go through that, they'll be looking at their goals and what's been proposed by the different commissions, and see if those align to budget the projects. So this may be something that would be beneficial to have to come back and say after the goal setting, and say, okay, yes, this is what the council set as their goals, and there's 2 art ones. We don't know what that's going to look like yet, but it might be something that the commission may wish to wait and see if they can align with those goals. And with that, if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to.
I have one question about just the scope. So a utility box is pretty easy to understand, but have we considered widening the scope to include other city-owned items like, fire or signals or irrigation boxes or other things that could also be wrapped that are outside of the scope of a utility box?
Not at this time, and it was the request was to do the utility box wrap. As far as we would have to do more research if that's what the commission desires, to look to see if that would be, if there is other opportunities, and maybe Commissioner Knudsen with her background would know of some. I don't know if you were involved in the wrap project.
For the city of Napa? I was, but in regards to fire and signals, that would be a big safety hazard.
Yeah.
So there are also other projects of vinyl, window wraps or temporary fence projects, because now with vinyl you can wrap so many different things. So it's just sort of scouting the locations around in the city limits of where would art be beneficial to the community, and how we could use it from there.
Thank you.
Well, and I think, identifying 4 boxes could be a great phase 1, and that we could, after success, expand into phase 2 and do other items,
Rebekah, are these all Caltrans boxes or PG&E, the 4?
So on the top, they're not owned by the city. We did not go to the extent of identifying which one they belong to. We just know that they're not city-owned. The ones that were city-owned were down at basically the 2 bottom pictures. On the left, it's on Broadway by the old firehouse, and the right was by the post office.
So they're small.
And we're not sure if those would be, that was part of the question, was we weren't sure whether those would be even able to be wrapped, or if it'd be feasible.
Probably, and with the right art, it could be something fun, even though it's small. Caltrans has strict guidelines, but they have guidelines and they have a public art program, so it would most likely be doable if it fits within their scope.
So it sounded like there were two options here. One is to create an ad hoc committee to discuss the ability of wrapping what has been identified as maybe two, and also moving towards Caltrans to see what their terms and conditions would be. Or the second option is just waiting for the city council to set their priorities.
And you could do, I mean, you could do both if the commission could set a ad hoc committee tonight if they desired. And then those individuals could do some of the advanced research. But to really say, we're going to go down this path and take this to the council, I would strongly suggest that you wait till after their goal setting. And that way they can look and see what their goals are for everyone, because I know they are going to be discussing goals. My understanding is at least for some of the commissions.
And can you remind me of that goal setting?
It's February 2nd at the Lodge. They're going to be holding it at the Lodge. And the time from 9 to 5.
Question as well, do we have a set aside budget for this? Because the public art fund couldn't be used for this because it's temporary art. So is there something in mind where, yes, the city would most likely have $5,000 to put towards this, or is that after the goal setting?
It would be after the goal setting, but there was additional funding budgeted in the budget sessions last year, more than what typically is given or funded for the cultural and fine arts. So there is additional funding there. I'm not sure exactly what that is at this moment,
Okay.
but it definitely would be something that they, would be, there's some money there.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Deb?
I just have a question of, if we don't pursue this, then how would the city council prioritize it or even make it a goal if we don't kind of do some legwork or say that we're interested in pursuing this?
If the commission chooses or desires to go and have the council look at this as something, and it may be, honestly, when we go back, if we look at it and say it costs $5,000, there may be enough funding that it doesn't have to go back as a council priority, depending on the cost. But that being said, if the commission chooses to do that, then it will be forwarded to the city manager through the city manager.
Yeah, it just seems like, I mean, if we're able to get the money, we need to say that we're interested in pursuing this, because otherwise we won't get earmarked for anything.
We can certainly do an estimate, right? I mean, how many boxes would be candidates, potential candidates for being wrapped? Half a dozen times 350. So, I mean, you're talking about a couple of $1,000, right?
That's the artist fee. Like, that's an artist
And then the
fee.
materials?
It would
Yeah.
probably be $1,000 to wrap
Yeah,
each box,
okay.
possibly. Then install, if you're also gonna pay them to install it. And then also any maintenance fees coming from the city's general budget, because we can't use the public art fund for that. So you'd wanna look at long-term costs of this as well.
For maintenance?
I mean,
All right, still it's
Yeah.
considerably less than 5,000, I think, all things considered, right?
Costs creep up on, I mean, maybe, I don't know, depending on how many.
All right, well,
It may be something that the commission decides to create an ad hoc committee, and the first piece of that ad hoc committee, or the first task, is to write something up and that can be forwarded to the city manager for their goal setting, or that he can at least
yeah, just give them a ballpark.
he can at least have that in his.
Okay.
But, yeah, all the additional costs you mentioned are important to include, of course.
Well, so is there interest in this commission to create an ad hoc committee to prepare something before the February 2nd council global goal setting? Is there interest in someone that would, okay. Because that's a short turnaround time. That's
Yeah.
less than 3 weeks or something. Okay, then I'll just put it to a question, with a raise of hands, no more than 3 people to be on that ad hoc committee to make that recommendation. Are there commissioners that would like to form an ad hoc committee to prepare this for city council goal setting? raise of hands.
Would I be able to get city assistance in measuring boxes, do you think? Because that will be key on getting a price estimate.
Interesting.
All that trouble to say, yes, of course. I would be more than happy to help with that.
I'm happy to help because I'm not able to do the treasured artist because it's not going to be on when I'm in town. So
Okay.
I'm happy to. I can help with
Great.
potentially contacting PG&E if the boxes are owned by PG&E, since you have a contact at Caltrans.
Right.
Okay. So looks like we have a ad hoc committee of 2. Any others would like to throw their name in the hat?
I could certainly contribute until Sunday. And then
I'll send
I'm
you a
leaving
list
town.
tonight.
Yeah. Send me a list, yeah, and I can scramble. And then I won't be back till the 31st, but we have
So
5
as
days.
the key members of Deb and Meredith with Scott as offering some
Short
time,
term, yeah.
do the 2 of you feel you could accomplish something to get to the goal before the goal setting on February 2nd?
Yes.
Is that reasonable?
Yeah, if I could just get the address of the PG&E owned ones, and maybe the pictures, and I'll run with that. And because you've done it at other places, I'm sure you could.
Yeah, I'll
Right.
put together a cost estimate and then long-term cost estimate, and I can get quotes from places around here, and then the Caltrans guidelines, something.
Okay.
And the costs in particular are going to be, the hard costs are going to be, particularly going to be important when we go into budget sessions. This is just so that the council can get an idea of what the commission would like to work on.
Okay.
And then see if that aligns with their goals.
Okay.
And so some of those costs are, we said a $350 honorarium to the artist, but each artist and the vinyl and the boxes, different sizes. So that's something that'll be driven by the artist or the ad hoc committee to come up with a budget. Of course, we don't have an artist selected. So how do we come up with a number for a 5x5 box?
Well, we'll need to see what the cost is to wrap it. So we can get quotes from maybe 2 to 3 places on the cost of wrapping. And then you include the artist fee and then a long-term maintenance fee, small, but something from the general budget for staff time. And start calculating in what's a current cost and then what's like a long-term cost.
And what's the life expectancy of a vinyl wrapped box? Do we know?
7, 8 years possibly.
And then,
Could be wrong on that too. That's just off the top of my head.
because this is a temporary art, at the end of the life expectancy, is it expected to be, the vinyl would be removed or replaced?
I mean, those are great questions. You know, if it starts to tear, is it something that's maintained and you know, redone? Is it something that's torn off, et cetera? Yeah.
Mario?
I mean, this is just based off of the car, like vinyl car wraps, but it says 5 to 7. So yeah, should there be like a separate ad hoc committee that regulates the 5 to 7 years, or like finding out like which artists they should pick? Should we go back through like?
I think right now we're just trying to
records?
do a little investigation. And so I think the idea of specific to the artist is a little premature. But if we can come up with a best guesstimate of what it would cost versus, and also, you know, some type of a maintenance, just a line item that perhaps in the course of 5 years, it may be damaged. We might have to rewrap the thing. So I think that's all part of what the ad hoc committee would prepare to this goal-setting council meeting. And it sounds like we can come up with that number with the 3 of you.
And when,
So-
if I may, I'll connect, now that we know that that's something the commission would like to do, I'll connect back, or we'll connect back with the city manager to find out what exactly that would look, how dense does it need to be? How detailed is the request or, to get that on their, radar? And I'll be in touch with the ad hoc committee members on that.
Okay, yes, Mario?
Also, like for choosing the artists for the specific vinyls, should we do it like in a specific area? Like, should we do like people in the city of Sonoma County, like
Yeah.
keeping it local, or should we like branch out to like all
I
the
think-
Bay Area?
That'll all sort of get fleshed out after the project gets approved by city council. So those kind of questions we're not ready for that yet. We want to see if we have a plan that city council will accept. And then if that is accepted and the monies are found to support it, then phase 2, phase 3 would be to pitch it to our artist communities and deep dive into who would do the work. But right now, we're just trying to nudge along and see if city council will support the project on a, just sort of a generally speaking basis. But we'll get to that hopefully.
Meredith,
Scott?
do you have any examples that we could take pictures of that are already completed in Napa, or are they in the process of being?
There's,
Yeah, it was included in the.
Oh, it is?
The city of Napa is included here. So we did we have an art walk map, and then, but we partnered with the Downtown Association and RAD District as well for the funding of this, and they also are in charge of the maintenance. So it was a partnership. It wasn't just the city.
So I think we have a consensus here that we would like to move forward with an ad hoc committee of Meredith, Scott, and Deb
Thank you.
to head up this ad hoc committee and provide the city clerk or the city council with a recommendation and a basic scope of work before their February 2nd meeting. So that's a great accomplishment. So thank you, members of the ad hoc. Do we need to vote on that?
I think you're okay.
Okay.
I see a consensus.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about forming an ad hoc committee for the box wrap program? Are there any questions from the public or on Zoom?
No, Chair Hagstrom.
Okay. Then with that said, we'll move on to item 2.2. Okay. So next is consideration of a creative student artist ad hoc committee. And we're looking to Sarah Tracy for comments on that regard.
Thank you so much, Chair Hagstrom. Good evening, Commissioners. This item has been added to your agenda in response to a series of comments and questions by various commissioners regarding the Student Creative Artist Award, specifically the public interview and selection process. If the Commission wishes to alter the process, an ad hoc would need to be formed to assess the current process and then present findings and any recommendations for changes to that process to the full Commission. A special meeting would need to be convened to discuss those recommendations, aiming for an implementation before the 2024 interview and selection process. And just as a refresher, the Student Creative Artist Award, initially named the Honorarium in 1988, became the Steve Silver High School Honorarium in 1994-95, and in 2002, it adopted its current name. The award currently stands at $2,000 with the possibility of additional awards if there is a surplus in the commission budget after the Treasure Artist reception. The last review of this process occurred in 2022, as you may remember, by a CFAC ad hoc committee, focusing at that time on the application process, submission scoring, and interview procedures. This award program is open to high school juniors and seniors who reside within Sonoma Valley Unified School District and have a strong interest in visual, literary, or performing arts. Applicants must apply online, including a 200 to 500 word statement explaining the role that art has played in their life and what their plans are for continuing their artistic training. Examples of their work, dependent on discipline, are also required. Applicants are required to participate in an in-person interview with the commission. The selection process is required by law to be conducted in a noticed public meeting. It's important to note that a review by an ad hoc committee would not impact the submission process from the staff side. So staff will issue a call for entries in early February with a submission deadline of Friday, March 21st, with interviews scheduled for the April 16th meeting that you have on the calendar already. That would be the current plan. The formation of an ad hoc committee is at your discretion. It is not required if the commission determines that the current process is satisfactory. And with that, I will turn it over to you unless, Rebekah, you have anything to add.
No, other than just as a reminder, it's going to take some thought about how you would pursue doing the interviews, not in the manner that you've done them, because this is a Brown Act commission, as you've heard me say, and all business, unless it's an ad hoc, is conducted in the open. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you were to pursue this to create a ad hoc, you would just need to keep that in mind as you went through it.
Okay. Yes, Deb?
The next meeting we have isn't until April, is that correct?
That is correct.
And that would be the interview time. So, I recommended just let's talk about the student award, but not necessarily to revamp everything. I mean, we did a ton of work on that a couple of years ago. However, last year we decided, I believe, to interview everyone because we didn't have a ton of submissions. But in the event we have a ton of submissions, I don't know how we would handle narrowing that down for the April meeting. So, I mean, an ad hoc could be created to kind of go through that scoring matrix and narrow that down, not necessarily to revamp the program.
If I may, Commissioner Emerson, we actually, under staff comments, I was actually going to ask the commission to schedule a special meeting in the first part of February after the council's goal setting to talk about this and a couple of the things that we'll talk about. But that was something that was already.
That's fine, but we won't know how many students will have applied. So, and I don't think we'll have any answer of like what we want to do then.
Yes, Meredith?
If we did get a large amount of submissions, could we split that into 2 meetings around that same time? Is that possible?
Yes, that was going to be a comment that there is always a possibility to set another special meeting, dependent on what we find out. So it's one of those things we probably won't find out until we know. We don't know until we know. But that would be something that we could work on internally.
And the students that submit will know at least that one date to have that open or available.
Yes, and after this discussion, that we have not put any information out about that yet, so we can adjust it to suggest that there may be a range of dates within a certain time frame. It sounds like if maybe you are interested, and it sounds like maybe doing them kind of back to back or in a series, that's something that we could certainly manage and notice.
And we did, in talking, staff did have a couple of ideas of how that could work as far as the interview process itself. And it's going to be something that I've got to run by, just making sure that I'm not forgetting something with our city attorney. But one of the comments that we had talked about was that it might be possible to break the commission up into 2 groups, or it might have to be 3 small groups to keep it under the quorum. And then the individuals could review the applications in those groups and discuss them. Thing is you wouldn't be able to come back as a group and talk about them until you were actually at a public meeting again. But that's just, that's just a real, spitballing, trying to figure out how we could make that happen. And again, I need to make sure that I'm not missing something with the city attorney. But that's something that the commission, and it may be that the commission decides they want to make no changes and continue doing it the way it's been going other than maybe splitting them if you get a large number of applications.
Yeah, well, maybe we could discuss like what worked, what didn't work to sort of determine whether an ad hoc committee is needed. And just with one, my thought is the rubrics that we created worked. It allowed us to create a tabulation system to numerically assign a number to each skill set, and it was easy to understand. And I think we applied a basic point schedule to those items. What I felt like it didn't work was maybe we could do a better job with outreach, and that we didn't have a great deal of applicants because perhaps we haven't reviewed the outreach recently, meaning the outreach is with a press release or going to talk with teachers. And I think there's always a way to improve that outreach. But I was happy with the rubrics and how we were able to use the math equivalent of scoring. And I don't think it really needs to be fixed, but I always like the idea of if it's not broken, improve it. Does anyone else have any comments on how it worked and maybe areas that need improving? Okay. Well, maybe we could just, go to a vote. Does anyone in this commission feel that we need to create an ad hoc committee to revise and improve upon our scoring matrices? No?
It's not necessarily the scoring matrices. I think, as you said, that I think everyone was pleased with those.
Okay.
It's more, and it may not be even something that the commission's interested in making a change to at this time. You may not need an ad hoc committee. It is more of looking at the process as an overhaul. And I don't know, Chair Hagstrom, if you might remember, the outreach portion was reviewed the last time you looked at this.
Okay.
And that's always going to be a, how do you get the word out more? We try all of our avenues, ask all of you to send it out to your guests. And unfortunately, sometimes people just don't apply. For whatever reason, they have the ability, they know about it, they just don't apply. I know in the past, the film teacher at the high school, I was very surprised that we had no submissions, and it was because of what they had going on at the time. It wasn't because they didn't want to, it just wasn't feasible for them to do so. That being said, definitely we should, as much outreach as possible, and maybe it's a couple of press releases, or maybe it's asking the newspaper to do a more in-depth article, or more social media. So that's all stuff that we can look at. The ad hoc committee is more, again, to look at the process to see if there's a way that those interviews could be done differently. But again, that is, we're not asking for, we're just letting you have the option of that, because it was a comment that we had heard multiple times about the process.
Well, yes, Meredith?
I agree with the outreach. I think a committee specifically for outreach would be beneficial. I don't think there'd be any negative to that, because it's getting into the classroom possibly even, and whether it's a short presentation or handing the teacher a flyer, okay, let's get them to apply. The other thing I believe last year was everyone had different questions going around the table, if I remember correctly. And sometimes it's really good with any type of interview is to keep consistency. So we ask them the same question, just out of fairness. And because if I remember correctly, that we all thought of our own question and we went around. So I think that that would be beneficial.
I think at first we all asked the same question, and then
Oh, you're right.
the second wave was come up with your own question. Yeah, but I agree. If we're
Okay.
gonna do that, we should. If we're gonna make our own, we should make it before, and then ask all of them the same ones.
Yeah, Martin?
Also, with the outreach portion, I'll be more than happy to contact the leadership team, Student Voice, newspaper, in a couple of the art classes as well. I know I have Mr. Hanson this year. Miss Manchester could probably and she's the newspaper teacher, so I could probably have her talk to her newspaper students, maybe even write an article in the school's newspaper about it. Then I'm close to these, I believe it's Slate 2. Yeah, it is Slate 2, that one. And I could easily talk to them about, like, hey, could you do this on the morning announcement to your leadership class? And maybe the leadership class could outreach to the teachers as well at the high school. So I could easily do that tomorrow if you would like me to.
Well, not quite that fast.
Right.
So what I'm sort of hearing from the commission is that perhaps the current process is satisfactory and we wouldn't need to form an ad hoc committee today, but that if indeed we do have a more outreach and do get more applicants, that we might consider breaking up the interviews into 2 days and then thus creating a second and a special meeting either before or after the April 16th meeting.
And you could, if that date doesn't meet the timeline that you guys would like to see, you can also do that you don't have to do it at that meeting. You can do it at 2 special meetings or 1. It doesn't have to be on April 16th, but we would like to be able to set some dates to be able to give to the students. And that may be something that, as I said, we were going to ask for a special meeting in early February. So what we'll probably do is look at the calendar and maybe send out a doodle poll or a few dates that would work, and then we can give those dates as tentative dates to make sure that you're available. The interviews may be on this day or so we can be proactive in that manner. But I can, or Sarah or Monique, one of us will send out a doodle poll.
Yes, Deb?
I would say I do like the April dates though, because it seems like every year we're into May and we're trying to get, the students are starting to take finals, and also we've always wanted to be able to announce it at their awards ceremony, and we've just never been able to select one before they actually have the ceremony. So it would be great to get that all finished in April.
Okay. So it sounds like we'll decline the opportunity to form an ad hoc committee, and we'll add this to the agenda of the early February special meeting to then formalize a second alternate date in the event that we need more face time with the applicants to ultimately award the prize.
And I'll send out an email, or one of us will send out an email tomorrow.
Okay. Are we all in agreement with that as a commission? Any comments from the public on that, or a Zoom? No? Okay, perfect. Okay, that'll conclude item 2.2, the consideration of an ad hoc committee. We'll move to item 2.3, the ad hoc committee reports. And there are various reports that are going to be presented tonight, and we can move to the first is the public art policy. And so who is on that ad hoc committee? Meredith?
It's Lauren and Connie as
Oh,
well.
okay.
So I will present. Let's see, after our first meeting, Lauren, Connie, and I met over Zoom to discuss the current public art policy. Sarah shared it with us, and I put it in a Google Drive for us to share and start reviewing updates needed and changes we'd like to see. We then also met with the city manager and Sarah to review the overall bigger picture of this, and certain areas such as funding, temporary art, or things that really needed to be addressed. Connie, Lauren, and I then reconvened again over email, and I believe also Zoom, to reconnect and start divvying up a task list for this and a timeline. As it's such a, it can feel pretty overwhelming of there's a lot to do. And so really starting to dial it in and divvying up tasks. So right now, we have our timeline together. We're currently commenting on the current policy together and highlighting areas that we want to see whether revised or have questions on. And we're doing a lot of research in the research stage. So we're gathering other cities' policies. We're seeing what worked, what didn't, how are their funding sources look like, is it working for them, is it not, all of that, which will still take a bit of time. So we have that in a spreadsheet that we are sharing. We have a list of possible stakeholders that we're putting together for a stakeholder committee. That's a possibility in the long run that we could get more input from the community of what they'd like to see. We are meeting with Tara Thompson, the new director at Creative Sonoma. We'll be meeting with her in February. She also did Santa Rosa's policy, which she worked with the city manager on. So hopefully we'll get a lot of insight on not just her policy work, but also Creative Sonoma, the Sonoma County policy, and what's the overall picture for that, and how does, City of Sonoma fit in, and, what's best for our city as well. So that's on February 5th. I'm starting to draft a rough outline of a policy as well. So working in conjunction with our current policy, pulling what works, what doesn't, and drafting an outline for a new policy. So that's in January. And starting in February, we'll have more meetings. We're going to allocate more tasks. We're hoping that by beginning to mid-March, we're going to have a draft of something we'd like to turn back over to the city and say, hey, these are the bullet points that we pulled. This is something we'd like to see, and then go from there. Questions?
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you. Sounds like a lot of work that you have, and it's such a big project, and I recognize that.
Chair, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
I know that when we first originally had looked at doing the update of the policy, this is back several years, one of the things was incorporating the temporary art into that policy. Is that, so I'm just curious, is that something that you guys are putting it into that same policy?
We are. So right now, no temporary art, or no funds can be used for temporary art. So it has to be 20 years or longer for the art. So a lot of cities actually do have temporary art, but we want to make sure we define temporary art correctly as well, and what it's used for. So yeah, that's what we're looking for.
I would just ask that within the ad hoc committee, do you need any other help?
Well, we can always use help. That's what we're also looking for, the stakeholder committee as well. And then we're looking at Tara for the assistance of, people that have worked on policies before, and reaching out to other cities. I know I work for Napa, but other cities and what their policies are. Yeah.
Should this be part of the special, this added to the agenda on our next meeting
Let's say
to
April.
discuss?
In April?
Well, no, we have a special meeting
Oh.
coming up.
As far as discuss.
Do you need any,
Well,
if she-
as far as the commission, there can be no more members from the commission
Okay.
working on that. They can't, unless you're on the commission, you shouldn't be discussing that with
Right.
anyone else, because you're gonna end up in a Brown Act. Now, you could have someone, if there was the stakeholders list that you could invite, that could be invited to work with them, but that would be, the ad hoc could do that without having to have the commission's.
Okay, so we wouldn't add any more comments on this to this special meeting in early February?
I don't think we'll have more of a solid update by then. I would say by the April we would for sure. If something does arise in the next 2 weeks or something and I'd like it added, I'm sure I could send you an email.
Okay. So does anyone have any, well, thank you again. Does anyone have any comments on Meredith's presentation? or city staff or public or Zoom? Okay, so thanks again. We look forward to hearing more about it. So the next item is the Treasure Artist Ad Hoc Committee report.
I'm on that committee with Deb and Lauren, who's not here. The event is going to be held at the NPR at El Verano, as that's where a lot of Victoria's community is. We're looking at Thursday, March 7th, but Lauren is following up with, do you have other news?
Yes,
Okay.
so it's confirmed at the site and with Victor that March 14th. It's going to be
Okay.
Thursday, March
Great.
14th, so that we don't conflict with the Sonoma Art Walk. And it will be at this time, it's 6 to 8 at the El Verano NPR. And I will let you continue, but please feel
Thank
free
you.
if you have. It's moving very quickly, and lots of details are firming up all the time. So if there's something more
If
you'd
you
like
have
from me.
updated information, just interrupt me. Yeah. We're going to kind of lean into the NPR and use the school benches and tables that are provided. The art teacher is going to use her art class to make a bunch of paper flowers to decorate it and make it festive. We're trying to make it a free event with donations available just to make it accessible to everyone there. We can't do alcohol, so we're thinking Haimaka and horchata. And then Lauren is looking at the catering that we always use, the Sonoma Market catering trays.
And for those that don't know, what is the El Verano NPR?
Oh, it's the multi-purpose room. So it's like cafeteria, gym, performance area. There's a stage, inside, outside stage. So
And is this at a school?
yeah, El Verano is a school
Okay.
in the Springs in El Verano. Deb?
I think we're still going to have a reservation system though, that just so we can,
Keep track.
for the catering.
Anything else?
So hopefully we'll have a press release ready to go out next Monday. And that will have more detailed information specifically about the registration, which will be done through Eventbrite. Even with free events, we do that to keep track and make sure that we are within capacity, although we have quite a lot of room, which is really wonderful. It can really be a community event. And Laluz Center has agreed to offer assistance to those who may not have access to computers and also happen to be able to do Spanish language assistance to register people manually if that's necessary for our larger communities. We're excited about that. And I think that's about it in terms of covering, other than it's just moving along very nicely. Deb, yes.
Anything that we put out publicly, can we also make it in Spanish and get it to the Spanish entities and agencies in the Springs?
Absolutely. So we have a plan. We do have a contractor that the city works with, that I work with in my public information role, who will be reviewing and translating all the information that I put out. So all the press releases and graphics and everything, to make sure that it's not just translated, but culturally accurate, and hopefully review things past Victor as well.
And what is the capacity of the multipurpose room?
476 people.
Whoa. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And just a side note that the district is very excited about this, and we're absolutely thrilled when we approached them about using the NPR, and everybody at El Verano has just been lovely to work with. The principal and the facilities manager have typically, this is not a time which would be available for the public to use, and they are rearranging. Thank you, Vivo, for I think they had practice in there. That's the violin group. So I know that they did some arrangements to accommodate this event so we could be in here, but everybody's just very, very excited to celebrate Victor, and that this whole event is happening and it's going to be open to the public. It's just very exciting for everybody. So we really appreciate their partnership on this.
And so is everyone available on March 14th?
I will be out of the country, so I'm
Oh.
heartbroken about it.
Okay.
I was hoping for the 7th, but
Okay. And is there any duties or assignments that you would like the commissioners to provide on March 14th?
Are we going to be having a check-in?
Yes, so I think there's in the past, usually commissioners, from my understanding, staff the check-in table and also help with setup and cleanup. And so as we get closer to the date, I will certainly be in contact to receive signups who would like to do what.
And did you get any word from facilities? Are they going to be there at all? Or
I have not followed up with them on the arrangement yet. I think a lot of that's going to be dependent on how many people we have registered. So I am in contact with Lori, and I will be asking that.
What is the earliest we can get in, and is there a decoration committee?
3:30.
Okay.
And I know, like Morgan mentioned, that there are paper flowers planned, and it's a large venue. So there's. I'm sure if you have a great idea, that I can facilitate, and we've seen how we can accommodate it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Morgan and Deb. This is something to look forward to. I'm looking forward to helping. Okay, any other comments about this? Yes?
Will it be videoed?
I have Bob Taylor, who is probably in that other room, does do recordings of community events. There is a cost for that because it takes a tremendous amount of setup. So I have sent the information out to the Ad-Hoc to consider in the budget process. But it does look like it's possible if it's so desired.
I don't think I'm on any of the emails. Just
Okay. All right, well, thanks again to the Ad Hoc Committee working with the treasure artist. It sounds like a wonderful event, and March 14th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the El Verano School's multi-purpose room. And what an event, and that's exciting. Yeah, can't wait. It's going to be a party. So then we'll move to the final Ad Hoc Committee report, which is the revolving art of the council chambers. And who is on that? Morgan again.
Meredith and I and Connie are on that. Meredith has more news about the next show, if you want to start.
I was able to connect with Sweetwater Spectrum, has an art enrichment program there. And they have, I believe, I could be wrong, but around 12 adults that live there in the residential facility. So they'll be showing for February. Right now we're looking at the date to hang. They're pulling their artwork, and they like to have each resident ideally have some artwork up here. And they're very thrilled and excited to have their artwork here.
And can you repeat the name? It's Sunrise?
Sweetwater Spectrum. It's a residential facility for adults with autism.
Do you have more questions about that?
I do, just about. Is there a number of artists that will?
Probably around 10 will have artwork here. I believe there's 10 to 12 residents right now, but not all of them do produce art. So, but as many as want to participate, we'd like to hang.
And multiple per?
Correct. Yeah.
Anyone else have questions about that one? Okay. Following that show, we're trying to do a Black artist show, and that is still just in the process of reaching out to enough artists to be able to actually have a show. So we reached out to the community center, the art museum, various galleries in town. I've heard back from 2 artists that are interested, but each only have a piece or 2 that could work in the space. So I'm going to an event in Richmond next Saturday to hopefully contact more artists. But that's been the biggest struggle for that show, is just finding enough artists who are willing to have art that can fit in this space.
when will this current show be pulled?
Most likely beginning of March when the Black Artist Show would go up, but it will depend on when, with the artists selected for March, when they can hang, and then we'll.
You mean the
This
the
current one,
posters?
I'm sorry.
That would be
The end of this month, so as soon as Sweetwater artists hang.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so the pulling of the current vintage festival will happen at the same time as the new show goes up? Okay,
Right before, probably.
Staff will probably do it, it'll probably be myself and Sarah that'll be coming in and removing the posters. And we're confirming, I've not received an answer yet from our Public Works staff, trying to schedule that for the 29th. But we do not have a confirmation yet on that.
and are these posters owned by the city of Sonoma, and will they be archived?
They are not owned by the city. There was some question or thought that how that could be done. The city doesn't really have a lot of facilities to archive art or do it. They're obviously very small, but we also have to get the buy-in from the Vintage Festival. Oh,
Yes, so the vintners and growers did say that we could have these, and I have reached out to actually our historical society to understand what kind of archiving system they recommend, even though we don't have a place for it, but more of a sleeve situation where they would be, preserved that way. But in my research, I found out that our historical society actually already is archiving all of the posters. So they actually have the ones that we don't have here as well. So just to know, it's good to know. They come by our office and are always taking all the little flyers and papers and things, and keep a very good record of all of those things. So just for your information. But council did make a special request to retain these for posterity, and whether we find a way to display them in a future date or is going to be has not been decided, but definitely we'll be keeping them for posterity and hopefully for another installation at some other point.
Great. And while I was scribbling notes here, I didn't write down when the Sweetwater Spectrum show will happen, or the opening.
Well, ideally, if we can hang on the 29th, which we're still waiting confirmation on, we don't have an opening date for like an opening reception yet, but it will be
Okay.
hung through February. So we'll work with the city and then we'll email that out for the opening.
Okay, so dates pending. And we have the Black Artist we talked about, and then will we continue on with a show every quarter?
that's our hope.
I will share that that definitely is the goals to continue. However, there will have to be a change made because of it being an ad hoc committee. The committee can only be considered a not Brown Act committee, that you can't be a standing committee that goes forever. So we were again talking about that this afternoon of how we could transition that to the commission as a whole going forward. And one of the things that was part of the charge of the committee to start with was what would that look like to put a policy together of how the artists would be chosen, just a small policy that would be moved forward with the commission. But that is something that now the ad hoc has been in place for a year, and typically these type of committees either set for a set period of time or for a specific purpose. So that committee will have to sunset in the next few months. Typically you can go no longer than 2 years, but we were thinking possibly by the June meeting, and then move it forward to the commission.
Okay, understood. All right. Yes, Deb?
Could you not just have an an ad hoc committee every year, reappointed, like we do for the treasurer artist?
That's a good question. And I believe you could, but now that we're saying that, that would be a standing committee, even though it was different members. And so it would be a standing committee. So we may need to look at the treasure artist, doing an ad hoc for the treasure artist as well. But that would be a standing committee like we've got. So yeah, we do need to look at those all.
So ideally, we would just come up with a process of like, if you want to hang your art in the chambers, follow these steps for like just the community, and then there's no ad hoc committee after, and then they just go through the steps, and as a commission, we decide.
I haven't gotten that far. We haven't gotten that far yet. It was just something that we thought about today because it is getting to a point where it has to sunset. And so we hadn't even looked at that yet. The policy was more of like, how would that be handled? Would there be a call to artists like we do with the student artists? Would it be, we do one every quarter? It was more that type of putting those guidelines together of what that would look like.
So should our committee in the next couple months create that?
That would be fabulous.
Okay.
Okay. All right, moving back to item 2.3, we've reviewed the public art policy, the treasure artist, and revolving art presentations, and that concludes item 2.3. Does any commissioner have any comments about this agenda, and any comments from the public or Zoom? Okay, then we'll jump to item 3, the commissioners' reports and comments. And I think this is something we just concluded. Are there other reports and comments from the commissioners? Yes, Deb?
I don't have a report, but next time you see Lauren, congratulate her for winning the Business of the Year award, our commissioner. So really happy for her.
I didn't hear that. What body awarded that?
It was the State of the Valley, Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, okay. Lauren, if you're watching this, congratulations. Any other comments by the commissioners? Okay. City staff comments?
Yes, I have a few. That's a good segue. I was going to encourage everybody, if you did not get a chance to attend the State of the Valley, which is an annual, it's been an event online or in person at some form or another, ongoing since a very long time, I'm sure, that is put on by the Chamber of Commerce, and it gives our local elected officials an opportunity to talk about what is coming, what has happened in the past year, what is coming forward. Mike Thompson's was there, and Susan Gorn spoke, and also our mayors, past, Sandra Lowe, and current, John Gurney, both did a presentation for a State of the City. So if you didn't get a chance to watch it, I would highly recommend you do so. They had a lot to say, and certainly the Year of the Arts was very much highlighted. So congratulations and thank you to you all for the parts that you played in that. You can watch it on KSVY SVTV's YouTube channel, or the city also has it available on our website. So please do take a minute and watch that. It was well done. And that was where Lauren also got her award. So you can watch her receive that and hear more about how that is awarded every year. It is something that people in the community nominate, Business of the Year and Nonprofit of the Year, which was Pet Lifeline this year. So quite an honor, very exciting. Also, as it was mentioned, the council goal setting session is scheduled for February 2nd. That is an all-day meeting, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. There is public comment is probably going to come up around 10 a.m. So any of you who would like to make a public comment as a member of the public, you're welcome to do so at that time. It's also just encouraged, it's a good way to understand what the priorities of council are going to be in the next year, and certainly how the commissions work together in concert to support whatever those council goals are. So I will be taking lots of notes. If you have any questions, and if you always feel free to reach out to the council members who appointed you with any comments that you might have, or as a commissioner there. And the last thing is an encouragement. There's lots of participation I'm requesting of you today. The city has embarked on a general plan update, which is a very large document which sets out the course for the city really for the next 20 years. It's done periodically, and ours is just getting started. So we're in the phase of feedback, input gathering, and our community development director has done a number of community workshops, and anybody is welcome to attend, and it covers everything. There are these things called elements within a general plan, and my hope is to also just have Jennifer Gates, who is our community development director, give a presentation to this group to understand how the arts and this particular body fits into the general plan update, because it is one of those things where it touches everything in our community, from climate action, arts, housing, circulation, parks and recreation. I mean, just everything. So it really is all encompassing. So the next one will be held at one of our wonderful art hubs. The Sonoma Community Center is hosting a community workshop on the 29th. So we can hang the art and then head over to the community center at 5:30. And that's open to the public, but if you haven't had a chance to participate, I would recommend that you join us. And that's all from me. I'll turn it over to Rebekah.
Just a couple of things, just as a reminder, I'll be sending out an email with a doodle poll for dates for a special meeting. And then also I wanted to introduce Monique Savier. She is the Deputy City Clerk, and she's going to be, as we're transitioning with staff, she'll be clerking the meetings for CFAC. I'll still be involved, but at a more back level. But we're transitioning now, so I wanted to introduce her. And with that, I don't have anything else unless you have questions for me.
No, yes, Deb?
Is there any reason why we can't discuss a special meeting now instead of a doodle poll? I mean, we can still do the doodle poll because there are people that aren't here, but does it make sense to at least give some ideas of when it might work?
Okay. So,
Did you have dates in mind already?
Well, I was just looking at the calendar of when we have meetings set in this room already. The second Tuesday, which would be your regular meeting day, is not available. It looks, and my one fear is that there might be a body that hasn't added their dates yet. Mondays, if people are able to do Mondays, that's always a good option because we don't have any regularly scheduled meetings in the space. It looks like at this point that the February Wednesday the 14th would be available, February the 8th, February 20th would all be, or any Monday in the month.
So the 5th, 8th, or 12th? I'd probably recommend not the 14th for people that may have plans on the 14th. I personally don't,
Oh,
but
yes, Valentine's Day.
the 19th is a holiday, but
It is.
so the 5th, 8th, or 12th possibly.
So we have those dates. Does anyone have conflicts on those dates? So we'll look for the doodle poll
Okay.
and let the mechanism of the doodle decide our meeting.
Thank you, that was a good start.
Okay. So, with that said, and we can conclude our meeting, I want to wish everyone a happy new year. 2024 looks like a busy time for us and this commission and the city and arts. And that's what we're here for. We're here to celebrate the arts and the people that make them and create them. So happy new year 2024. And with that, I will conclude the meeting. It is 7:12.